cows. I want to talk to you about my top 5 flowering shrubs for the month of June. I'm talking about plants that are going to be in full flower, look amazing, really bring some architectural splendor to your garden. Now, the problem that most people do is they do a lot of their plant buying in May, and they're buying them already in flower. So once they finish flower, you're not going to get any more blooms until next year. So quite often you come to June and there isn't so much to look at. So I'm going to give you my top 5. In fact, I'm going to go one further. In fact, 2 further, because I'm going to give you 7. The reason why it's not called top 7, because that is weird. Top 5 is better. Let's get on with the first one. It is the absolutely spectacular Deutzia scabra Plena. Native to the Kanto region of Japan, this deciduous flowering shrub grows to between 1.5 and 2.5 meters tall. It is a spectacular blooming plant. The problem is many of you may never have seen it in flower despite being planted reasonably wide, and I'll tell you why that is. People, gardeners, keep pruning this plant at the wrong time of year. Deutzia flowers on the previous season's wood. So unless you prune it immediately after it has flowered, you prune it at any other time, you're going to be removing the wood that it will be flowering on next season. So it's rarely seen in flower, and that's an absolute shame because this is one of the very best flowering plants for June. Plant it in full sun to semi-shade. It doesn't really matter what kind of pH the soil it is. It will be happy in either slightly alkaline, slightly acidic, neutral. Really doesn't matter, just so long as that soil is regularly moist yet free draining. Yes, I know you complain about me saying this. It's a magical kind of soil. Moist soil's too wet. Well, that's what the book says, so that's what I'm telling you. Plant it. You will have an absolutely magnificent plant. Just remember, if you do want to prune it, it is immediately after flowering. After that, don't flipping touch it. Next on the list at number 2 is the magnificent, I don't use that word very often, Weigela florida. And you might think, Weigela florida, that must be native to the United States of America.
Oh, say, can you see?
Well, it's not. No, it's from China, Japan and Korea. The Florida part of it is just to do with the fact that it's very free flowering when it does come to flower. So flower Florida, that's the connection there. It's not from Florida. Growing conditions for your Weigela florida are actually very similar to the Deutzia scabra Plena that I just mentioned before. Both of these are actually very, very cold hardy, easily taking temperatures down to approximately minus 15 degrees Celsius.
No!
Yeah, you're surprised at that. It grows to a similar size, 1.5 meters up to about 2.5 meters. Flowers very freely, but you have that same problem that you get with regards to the pruning. To be honest with you, it's probably just best to let it create its own natural kind of semi-weeping lovely kind of shape, because as soon as you start pruning it, you're going to ruin the bright structure. It's going to look a bit weird. I don't particularly like that. So if you do have to prune it, once again, it is immediately after flowering. Now, if you do that, you may still get a second flush of blooms later on in the year, but you don't then do another cut because these plants flower on last season's wood. So once you've made that first cut after the first lot of blooms in June, you don't touch it until the following year. It will take full sun, semi-shade, no problem whatsoever. Again, it's not fussy about your soil type, whether it's acidic, alkaline or neutral, really doesn't matter. And again, it likes to be regularly moist, yet well drained. I'll probably be repeating that for all of these plants because it is a kind of standard thing gardeners say about plants from the Asian region. These Weigelas are tough as old boots. Many of the cultivars have the award of garden merit from the Royal Horticultural Society. I'm holding the camera with the other hand. So you can plant this plant with absolute confidence, and believe me, you have one of these in your garden and you don't mess about with the pruning, you'll have a spectacular plant every single year.
Hooray!
Commonly known as the snowball tree, the Viburnum opulus Roseum is an absolutely stunning plant with fantastic, large, showy, perfectly round, big balls of white blooms. Despite their amazing look, they are not particularly fragrant, so despite you wanting to smell it, you're not going to get much out of it because these blooms are what is known as sterile. No one wants to hear that word. Native to Europe and North Africa and naturalized throughout parts of the United States, it is a larger grown plant, covers an area of approximately 4 meters high, 4 meters wide. So when you do plant it, you need to make sure you've got the space to accommodate it. It's not too fussy about its soil type, although it will do better on slightly alkaline soils, and yes, once more, reliably moist, well-drained soils. Pruning times, once again, immediately after flowering, because like the other two mentioned, this plant flowers on the previous season's wood. And should you require further convincing that this plant is absolutely stunning and excellent for the suburban garden, this too has received the award of garden merit from the Royal Horticultural Society. I'm not going to clap this time. Get moving, I'm still filming. Honestly, I'm trying to work. At number 4 on the list is the Spiraea japonica, a native to China, Korea, Japan. And I particularly like the cultivar known as Goldflame. The reason for this is because this is a 2-for-1.
Bravo!
Not only does it have hundreds of clusters of small pink, horrible colour, flowers, you also get the wonderful foliage. Starts off like a orangey red coloration and then that changes to an orange to a yellow as time goes on. To get the very best coloration out of your foliage, you need to cut all these stems back in the spring. You'll get that flush of new growth where the very best colour will occur. Also, unlike those earlier plants, Spiraea japonica flowers on the new season wood. So by cutting it early in the spring, it does not affect your flowering. It improves it, and like I say, you get that gorgeous coloration on that foliage. And that's really the thing about it's the most striking thing about this plant. Gorgeous, gorgeous foliage. Plant it in full sun. It will take semi-shade. It's not particularly worried about the soil. It will even go in alkaline conditions. Now, regarding moisture and drainage, it can cope with quite a lot of watering, but it doesn't want to be exposed to waterlogged conditions for an extended period of time. So as usual, reliably moist, well drained, but it can take that high amount of watering. In its native habitat, this plant is often found in boggy regions, by riversides, by streams, but like I say, not permanently waterlogged, but certainly it will take a good slosh of water periodically. At number 5 is your Hydrangea macrophylla, the big-leaved hydrangea. And of course, blue is the most popular flower. Why wouldn't it be? Those other washed out pink, horrible colours, absolutely disgusting. I wouldn't give it any garden space whatsoever. Now, you do need to be a little bit more specific on how you plant these because they are very easy to upset. They don't like to be in full sun, especially during the hottest part of the day, because those leaves will easily scorch. It will take morning sun, late afternoon, evening sun, but certainly give it protection from a high canopy during the hottest part, the sunniest part. When it comes to soils, you've got to be very, very careful. These plants will require to be kept in a slightly acidic compost. So you're looking at buying yourself some ericaceous compost. If it doesn't have ericaceous written on the bag, it will say something like Azalea, Camellia, Rhododendron compost. The problem is when it's kept in neutral or alkaline conditions, certain nutrients become unavailable to this plant. It literally cannot take them up. They are locked away from its roots. You're looking at magnesium, you're looking at iron, you're looking at manganese. And these plants require these nutrients in order to produce the chlorophyll pigment, which is the green pigment that you find in the leaves that does all the work. It creates the sugars from carbon dioxide and water and sunshine using photosynthesis. So if you put it in the wrong soil, your plant will go yellow, it will be stunted, won't flower very well, it will look terrible, and it'll be your fault because you put it in the wrong compost, and I already just told you about that. Take note that Hydrangea macrophylla flowers on the previous season's wood, and this is very important when it comes to pruning. You've got two choices. You either don't ever prune it, and that way you'll never have a problem with you cutting off the part of the plant that's going to put the flowers on, or if you do have to flower it, you've got two choices. You either prune immediately after flowering and then you never prune it for the rest of the year until it flowers again, or if you have a large unwieldy plant, then remove, for example, the back third section of all the stems. So you could take out 2 to 3 year old wood every single year, or just sections of it, and then do another section another year. But you never give a blanket cut of this plant at any time of year other than immediately after flowering. You don't have to do that, but if you want to do it, that's when. Otherwise, you won't get any flowers in the spring, and that is the biggest problem with this plant, is non-flowering. It's all to do with the pruning. If you're not sure, just rewind that bit back, play it all again. At number 6, we are going to be continuing with the mildly acidic compost type of plant with the spectacular and probably my most favourite plant in this list, and that is your Callistemon splendens, otherwise known as the Bottlebrush plant. A native to the coastal regions of New South Wales, Australia. That's enough of that. It was one of the first plants ever to have been brought out of Australia and grown in a different country. This was a section of root that was collected from Botany Bay in the 1770s by the world famous horticulturist Sir Joseph Banks. It requires full sun only. It is extremely drought tolerant, although there is evidence from people saying that these are quite happy in reliably moist soils in their native habitat. It requires a slightly acidic soil, and according to the Royal Horticultural Society's table of hardiness, this plant is only considered to be half hardy, going down to no more than -5 degrees Celsius, but that isn't true, because the plants that we have here in the south coast of Essex regularly take temperatures down to -6, -7, and last year we had an impressive, well for us, -8 degrees Celsius, and yet it's bounced back and is about to flower in the next few weeks. See, -8 everybody, and it's packed with new growth and emergent buds. Lovely. In at number 7 of my top 5 flowering plants for June is another lovely specimen. This one's from the South Americas, the subtropical and temperate regions of. Yes, we are talking about the Abutilon megapotanicum, which, at least in my experience, is going to be the hardiest one that you can possibly grow here in the UK. The reason for that is, once again, according to the Royal Horticultural Society's table of cold hardness, this is only considered half hardy going down to -5 degrees Celsius. But my dear friends, this is not true, because we have this one growing in our garden in West Sussex, and it's taken temperatures down to -8 degrees Celsius, which is what we had here last year. Come on, you need to update your records, RHS. Plant it in full sun, plant it in a sheltered position. You will require, again, a slightly acidic compost for this to perform at its best. And there you go. Those are my top 7 plants of my top 5 plants for June flowering. But of course, depending on where you are going to have a different selection of plants that are going to give you that essential summer color. And I urge you to put those in the comments along with where you live, so it makes a little bit more sense, because it's great to get that information out there. Anyway, thanks for watching. Before I go, just check out this video here. This has been surprisingly popular. I have no idea why, but if that's what you want, that is what you're gonna get. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.